morning, folks. So, welcome back again to AHR As Institute. Of the first lecture, first test was crackable for you. If not crackable, at least you could understand some questions. Now, we've designed the paper in such a way that you'd be able to recognize the questions as regards their nature in terms of difficulty level. Sometimes the difficulty level is too high, sometimes the difficulty level is too low, or the questions may sound very simplistic. Now, this is what UPSC does. There's a curious mixture of very easy questions, ranging from very easy, it goes on to difficult level questions. But difficult not in terms of the content, but difficult in terms of the kind of options that are arranged in the manner that you will not be able to solve the question. So that is one thing that we have tried to incorporate in our test series so as to enable you to read the questions better, to understand the questions, and to at least have a decent chance at attempting the question even if you don't know the entire content of the question. So that is how we have devised our test series. So today I am going to take you through the entire paper and probably will be seeing how to attempt the questions, what to attempt, what not to attempt, what to take into consideration while attempting the questions, because that is very important. Sometimes we get too excited while solving the questions because we have read about them. Sometimes we get too nervous while attempting the questions because we have no clue about them. But presence of mind is very essential as regards cracking UPSC prelims is concerned. Why I am saying this is very simple, that there are many questions which might look unsolvable at the outset, but you might be able to crack them if you have the right mindset, frame of mind, and also if you appeared for a lot of tests. So practice is very essential, and we are following it up with an online discussion so as to give you a brief idea about how to go about the test papers. This will not only help you in cracking the other exams, it will not only help you in solving the coming test series, but help you tremendously to achieve desired results at UPSC Prelims 2017. So let's look at the first question. Which of these are the evidences cited to prove that the Himalayas are still rising? The first option would be some of the fossil formations found in the Shivalik hills are also available in the Tibet plateau. Frequent occurrences of earthquake in the region. Third is the Himalayan rivers are still in their youthful stage. Why was this question put into the paper? Is just to check your conceptual understanding as regards the physiography of India is concerned. If you very closely look at the first statement, it says some of the fossil formations found in the Shivalik hills are also available in the Tibet plateau. Now this is something that you would get on the internet. This is something that is given in the NCERT books. If not in the NCERT, it's definitely given in reference books like R.K. Kuller or even Total Geography by ICSC Code. Now, if you have just gone through the NCERT, the first statement looks a little improbable because you might not be able to find it in the NCERT books. But the next two statements are pretty much there in the NCERT books. So you have frequent occurrences of earthquake in the region. The Himalayan rivers are still in their youthful stage. Now consider frequent occurrences of earthquake in the region. We've seen a lot of earthquake and a lot of seismic activity unfolding in the Delhi region. We also had the Nepal earthquake a while back. What we see is that there are two plates colliding, and the subcontinent plate is being subducted over the Eurasian plate. If you know the theory of plate tectonics. So what happens is, because of this constant grinding of plates and because of this constant conversion of plates, we have a seismic activity, we have a lot of release of energy over there. So if you know about the plate movements, if you know about the Indo-Australian plate, how it is moving towards the Eurasian continent, and also about the upliftment of the Himalayas, you would definitely be able to concur that the frequent occurrence of earthquake in the region is indeed a right statement. Now look at the next statement. The Himalayan rivers are still in their youthful stage. Yes, obviously the Himalayan rivers are still in their youthful stage, and therefore we see a lot of erosional activity. They are in their youthful stage obviously because they have their mouths in a lot of glaciers. Not just that, the Himalayas are still rising. So there is a lot of landform occurrences happening over there, and rivers being one of them. So obviously statement 2 and statement 3 are right. Now the next question is, well, the first statement. Some of the fossil formations found in the Shivalik hills are also available in the Tibet plateau. This is something that you should know. If you don't know, by deduction, you can very well safely say that yes, the fossil formations found in the Himalayas and in the Tibetan plateau are almost of the same nature. Now, for this, it's essential that you go through reference books like Majid Hussain or R.K. Kuller or Guching Yong, or for that matter any other book. But you don't need to go for a very detailed understanding of the book. Only when it comes to India's physical geography, you need to go through a little bit in detail as regards these books are concerned. So if you've done that, and if you've read the other two options, you would definitely concur that 1, 2, and 3, all the three statements are correct. Okay. Now, then moving on to the next question. Now, this is a simple match the following question. On one side you have the ranges, and on the other side you have the states. So, if you look at it, Churiya Ghat hills are found in Nepal. Very recently they were in news also. If you've been going through current affairs, you would understand that Nepal shares its landforms with India in terms of Himalayas, and therefore Churiya Ghat hills were in news while back. And there was a mention of Churiya Ghat hills from Nepal in the newspapers. So if you've been through the current affairs, if you've been following your current affairs thoroughly and religiously, what will happen is, in spite of not knowing the fact about the locational aspect of Churiya Ghat hills, you would definitely be able to say that yes, Churiya Ghat hills are in Nepal. Now, if you go to the maps given in the NCERT books, your reference textbooks, what you see is Mishmi, Dafla, and Abor hills are in Arunachal Pradesh. So you will definitely see that Dafla hills are found in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, when I don't know where Dudhwa hills lie, I can safely assume that they are in Uttaranchal. Why? Is because I have already deduced that Dafla is in Arunachal and Churiya Ghat is in Nepal. So what happens here is that in spite of not knowing where Dudhwa hills lie, I can say that they are in Arunachal. So the correct answer of that would be 1C, 2A, and 3B. That would be the correct answer. Okay. So this is something that this is a map-based question if you look at it. But this also tests your current affairs. Like say suppose Dudhwa National Park is found in Uttaranchal and it's famous, it's a tiger habitat, and that has also been in news quite recently. So if you've been reading the news, there's a great chance that you might be able to give the right answer to questions. So be very careful, guys, when you're reading newspapers. Be very careful about any mention of any landforms or any hills or any ranges that occurs in the news, because that is going to be your crutches in the examination. In case your memory fails you, in case you don't really remember what you've read in the NCERTs, at least your current affairs will help you answer questions like these. So I hope this was pretty much clear to you. Now moving again to the next question. Obviously we cannot do the entire set of questions. We are going to do, I have handpicked a few questions here so as to ensure that you get to understand various types of questions that are asked in the examination. Now, if you look at question number 4, now look at the statements. Maximum development of glaciers occurs in the Pir Panjal range, and Siachen Glacier is situated in the Nubra Valley. Gangotri Glacier, which is the source of the Ganges, is located in the Kumaon Garhwal region of the Himalayas. At the outset, this question looks a very fact-based question. This looks uncrackable to a lot of us is because a lot of facts are involved in the question. Yes, these are the difficult kind of questions wherein every statement is going to judge you based on your knowledge and the kind of reading that has been gone, the reading that you've put into it. Okay. So how to crack a question like this? Let's look at statement 1. Maximum development of glaciers occurs in the Pir Panjal range. You should know that the Pir Panjal, you should know when you look at the map where the Pir Panjal range lies, where the Zaskar range lies, where the Karakoram range lies, and how are Shivaliks aligned with the Great Himalayas. If you look at your NCERTs, you would definitely know that Pir Panjal lies on the lower side, and the average elevation is not as high as other ranges. And glacier formation occurs at very high elevation levels. So if you've gone through your NCERTs, you can assume, not assume, but you can deduce very safely that maximum development of glaciers Pir Panjal में तो नहीं होगा. कहीं और हो सकता है, but Pir Panjal में definitely नहीं होगा. If you look at statement 2, Siachen Glacier is situated in the Nubra Valley. Now, Siachen Glacier is situated in the Nubra Valley is again a very fact-based statement. For this, you have to read. You have to read probably R.K. Fuller, as I mentioned in the past also, or you probably have to go through your NCERTs in a little bit more detail. Locate where Nubra Valley is. Now, glaciers are in the news. See, the questions that UPSC will ask you would be from the static part, but the current affairs aspect will play a huge and a vital role in your examination. Why would I say that? I would say that is because, very simply speaking, the retreat of glaciers has been in the news very currently. And Siachen Glacier is one of the largest glaciers out of the polar and the subpolar regions. As all of us know that Glacier formation occurs mainly in the polar and the subpolar regions. And beyond that, it is in the Himalayas where you find world's largest and the highest glaciers. And as regards Siachen Glacier, it's one of the largest and the biggest glaciers outside the subpolar and the polar regions. So very recently, a study was conducted to actually check the kind of glacier retreat that is happening over there. And therefore, this was a topic which was in news for a very long period of time. So a little bit of smart understanding of current affairs and analysis of current affairs would lead you to a fact, would lead you to a situation where you would start searching for glaciers, not just in your NCRTs but even on Wikipedia and Google, because that has been heavily dominating our current affairs in the past 6 months, owing to global warming and climate change. So glaciers is one of the hottest topics, and UPSC would definitely want to focus on it, either from the environmental point of view or from the physical geography point of view. Either ways, you have to have a clear-cut understanding of glaciers. So if you look at Siachen Glacier, you should definitely know the locational aspect of Siachen Glacier. And this is something, if you don't know, you cannot crack it. So a lot of extensive reading, a lot of mapping and plotting is required to answer questions like these. So that is where a lot of hard work has to be put in as a UPSC aspirant. Now, statement number 3. Gangotri Glacier, which is the source of Ganges, is located in the Kumaon-Garhwal region of the Himalayas. Now, see, Kumaon-Garhwal region of the Himalayas is also known for religious tourism, because a lot of rivers also originate there, and a lot of religious places are also there. Now, since what we have seen since the 2004 Uttarakhand crisis, the flash floods that we had experienced over there, is that the Kumaon-Garhwal region has come under scrutiny. Is probably because of flash floods, urbanization, and also because of soil erosion. Gangotri Glacier, which is the mouth of the Ganges, is a very well known fact. So combining these two, this one statement can definitely be cracked. So now, when I don't know whether Siachen Glacier is situated in the Nubra Valley, I definitely know that statement number 1 and statement number 3 are right. Okay, so you can statement number 2 and statement number 3, that is the problem. Statement number 1 is definitely wrong, as we have discussed previously. Now 3 is definitely right. Now which options have 3? A, B and C all have options 3. Okay, but we know that statement number 1 is wrong. Maximum development of glaciers occurs in the Pir Panjal range. According to our discussion, it's definitely not right. So what we are left with is 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is option number A, wherein you don't have 1 as an option. Okay, so you can definitely answer questions like this. But इसमें आपको पता होना क्या जरूरी था? इसमें आपको पता होना ये जरूरी था कि पीर पंजाल रेंज में ग्लेशियर फॉर्मेशन बहुत कम होता है, और जो स्टेटमेंट नंबर 3 है, इट्स अ वेरी जेनेरिक काइंड ऑफ अ स्टेटमेंट जो आपको पता होना ही चाहिए. As a serious UPSC aspirant, you should know. So in spite of not knowing statement number 2, you would have easily cracked this question. I hope that I'm making a lot of sense and I'm coming across to you in a very simplified manner. This is how, guys, you have to crack your questions at the examination. Moving on. Now, this is a very interesting question. Had there been no Himalayas, whole of India would have been a desert. India would have experienced several winters. Monsoons would have been affected. This is a completely concept-based question. This is something that probably you would find difficult to find in the books. But how to crack these questions is just basically knowing what functions do Himalayas play in the geography of India. Now, Himalayas are at the crown of India. If you've read your physical geography correctly, if you've read your world geography correctly, you would know that the jet stream coming from Mediterranean, it splits when it collides against the Himalayas, and one branch comes to India. It gets attracted towards the ITCZ, Intertropical Convergence Zone, which forms over the Gangetic belt. Okay, and southwest monsoons are also attracted towards the ITCZ as well as the jet stream. It is because of the Himalayas that the convergence of these wind patterns occurs and we get a lot of rainfall. Okay, that is also primarily the reason for the existence of southwest monsoon in India. So, statement number 1, whole of India would have been a desert. It's true, because no precipitation would have happened. Convergence of winds wouldn't have happened. And when there's no convergence of winds, southwest monsoon winds, why would they get attracted towards the ITCZ? There would be no formation of intertropical convergence zone, as you've seen in your NCRTs. So statement 1 would suffice. It would suffice to say that whole of India would have been a desert. Now statement number 2, India would have experienced severe winters, obviously, because Himalayas actually block the cold air masses coming from Central Asia. Now these cold air masses, they are at a very high level. So you need very high mountains like the Himalayas to block them. It is because of the presence of Himalayas that India does not have severe and extreme winters. Had that not been the case, the entire country would have been under the influence of these cold air masses, and we would have definitely experienced severe winters. Monsoons would have been affected. Of course, monsoons would have been affected is because the presence of Himalayas ensures that the southwest monsoon winds converge towards the ITCZ. Also, the presence of Himalaya ensures that the jet stream which is coming from the Mediterranean splits and one branch comes inside India. When one branch comes inside India, it goes over the ITCZ and collides with the southwest monsoon winds. Because of these pattern of wind circulation, we have development of monsoon over India. That is one of the primary reasons that we have precipitation. So, although this question might not be found in any of the books, you can easily crack it by using your deduction power or power of logic, as they say. Because if you read your NCERTs correctly, you would know the function that Himalayas play, the vital and the critical role that Himalayas play in the geography of India. The next question would be about the North Indian plains. These are aggradational plains formed by the depositional work of three river systems, the Indus, the Ganga and the Brahmaputra. Second, it is the largest alluvial tract in the world. Third, at its highest elevation of 291 meters near Ambala, forms the watershed which divides the drainage system of Ganga from the Indus. Now, this is the statement number 3 is something that you should know. Statement number 3 is something that you would find in a lot of reference books or even on Wikipedia. It could be there probably in the first paragraph when you go to the Wikipedia entry. The second statement is quite straightforward. It is the largest alluvial tract in the world. It's a well-known fact. It's given in the books. So, as a serious UPSC aspirant and as someone who studied geography, it would be a cakewalk to answer something like this. These are upgradational plains formed by the depositional work of three river systems, the Indus, Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. Obviously, these are upgradational plains, as in they get a lot of sediments from their sources of origin and from the mountains that they're coming from, especially the Himalayas, and then they deposit those over the plains of northern India when the river water loses velocity. When the river water loses velocity, it kind of deposits the sediments on the riverbed, and that's how these upgradational plains are formed. So this is a pretty straightforward question, but for the third statement, which would require some bit of understanding, some bit of extensive reading. So 1 and 2 are definitely correct. So the problem is between option number B and option number C, because you can easily eliminate option A and option D. So the correct answer would be 1, 2, and 3, because Ambala is where the watershed is. Watershed is the dividing point between two river basins. It's at an elevated point. So the river that is coming across, and when it meets the watershed, it bifurcates. When it bifurcates, it goes on its own way. So the watershed region always becomes a dry region and forms a boundary between two river basins. So I hope you get it, and therefore by elimination at least you could narrow down to 2 options. When you narrow down to 2 options, you are left with your understanding of the third statement. It's very essential that you know the third statement, only then you can get it right. So it's 1, 2, and 3. So again, if you move on to the next question, question number 8, Central Highlands, Mawar Upland, Malwa Plateau, Chota Nagpur Plateau. If you just open up your NCERTs and if you keep on looking at the map for about say 10 minutes, just keep looking at the map for 10 minutes. The answer to this question would be right in front of your eyes. See, geography is about visualization and a lot of graphic imagination. Geography is not about road memorization. So the more you look at maps, the better it is for you in terms of solving questions like these. It's because when you look at Central Highlands, Marwar Upland, Malwa Plateau, Chota Nagpur Plateau, they are all stacked up very closely in the body of India, after the northern Indian plains and between the southern Indian plains. So these are sandwiched between these two landforms. So when you look at them, they are stacked very, very closely. If you closely look at the map, probably for 5 to 10 minutes, you will be able to answer this question. So this doesn't require a lot of hard work. It just requires a little bit of mapping every day. Probably even 5 minutes would suffice. And the next question is about river systems of India. The Mahanadi, the Godavari, the Krishna, the Kaveri, and several smaller rivers draining southeast into the Bay of Bengal. The Narmada and Tapi flowing west, as well as several small streams originating from the Western Ghats, flow westwards into the Arabian Sea. Tributaries of the Ganga and the Yamuna such as Chambal, Betwa, Ken, Son and Damodar flow into the northeasterly direction. So all of us know that Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri and several smaller rivers drain southeast into Bay of Bengal. See, when you talk about the river systems of India, and if you talk about major rivers, it's only Narmada and Tapi which flow into the Arabian Sea. Yes, there are many other rivers which flow into the Arabian Sea, especially Luni and Mahi from Gujarat and Rajasthan. But if you look at the major rivers of India, what happens is, especially the peninsular rivers and also the Himalayan rivers, they'll drain into the Bay of Bengal. The answer to that will be found in NCRTs, because when you read NCRTs, it says that the Indian landmass is tilted towards the Bay of Bengal, towards the eastern direction. So obviously, when you imagine, you would definitely see that the flow of rivers would be biased in the easterly direction. So it suffices to say that the first statement would be true. It's also given in your NCRT, so it wouldn't require a lot of effort here. The Narmada and Tapi flowing west, as well as small streams originating from the western Ghats, flow westwards into Arabian Sea. That's quite obvious, as I discussed earlier. Tributaries of the Ganga and the Yamuna, such as Chambal, Betwa, Ken, Son and Damodar, flow in the northeasterly direction. Again, if you look at the map, if you look at the drainage system of India, I think that's chapter number 3 from NCRT, India's Physical Geography. You have the river systems, you have their tributaries, and their flow of direction is also very well pictorially represented on the paper. If you look at it, you definitely come to the conclusion that 1, 2 and 3 are all correct. So this was a pretty fairly simple question. If you could just look at the map, not even read text, if you could just look at the map properly, you would be able to answer this question. The next question is about Himalayan rivers and peninsular rivers. Here, all we need to know is that peninsular rivers are the rivers which form deltas and not estuaries. They generally, peninsular rivers are the rivers originating from the peninsular section of India. As we've seen in the last slide, in the last question, we saw that Mahanadi, Godavari and other rivers, they drain into the Bay of Bengal. These are peninsular rivers and they form deltas over there. Now, when you talk about estuaries, estuaries are not delta formations. Estuaries are generally found on the western coast of India in the Arabian Sea. Why is estuary formation dominating the western coast? Is very simply because rivers draining into the Arabian Sea, they don't travel long distances. Since they don't travel long distances, and since the gradient that they are coming from is not as steep as the Himalayan rivers, erosion is less. Since erosion is less, they will pick up less material from the riverbed. If they pick up less material, what will happen is when they come to the mouth, when they deposit or when they drain themselves into the Arabian Sea, they won't have much material to deposit. So there is no delta formation. But as regards you see Bay of Bengal or the eastern coast of India, you have rivers coming from the Himalayas, you have rivers coming from the peninsular block, and what happens is they are running over a long period of time, over huge distances, about 2,000 kilometers and 3,000 kilometers in cases of big rivers like Ganga and Yamuna. So what happens is, since they are also coming from a steep slopes, especially the Himalayan rivers, there's a lot of lateral erosion, there's a lot of vertical erosion, and there's a lot of definitely sedimentation. And because of picking up of sediment, what will happen is when these rivers slow down, there will be a lot of sedimentation. Where does that sedimentation occur? It is near the mouths of the rivers where they actually slow down to a great rate. So this gradient difference and this distance of travel will determine the formation of delta. Therefore, it's very easy to say that peninsular rivers form deltas mostly, and they definitely don't form only estuaries. Okay, so now it's very simple that option 4 is wrong. Since option 4 is definitely wrong, A and C are eliminated. What is left is D and C. Now, Himalayan rivers are still in their youthful stage, is something that we've seen in the earlier question. So 1 is definitely right and 4 is definitely wrong. That brings on us to option number D. 1, 2 and 3. Only 1, 2 and 3 are correct. So what you can say is we are very easily able to eliminate some options based on our general understanding and also based on our knowledge of the maps, as well as how well we have read our NCRTs. Okay. The next question, question number 12. The northward drift of the Indo-Australian plate was due to convectional currents. Second, Himalayan mountain system is made up of sedimentary rocks. Now both are correct. Himalayas are not made of metamorphic rocks, they are not made of igneous rocks. Igneous rocks are volcanic in formation. We don't have any volcanic belt in the Himalayan region. But at the same time, if you look at it, Himalayas are the source of many rivers, so obviously a lot of sedimentation activity occurs there. So obviously it is formed of sedimentary rocks. The northward drift of Indo-Australian plate. We have discussed that how the Indo-Australian plate has drifted northwards and has collided with the Eurasian plate, and that is because convectional currents. What are convectional currents? Convectional currents are basically formed because of thermal differences. What thermal differences are we talking about here? See, the plates are moving on a semi-elastic magma or lava, as you can call it, and it's very hot. What happens is, because of the temperature gradient, because of the hotness, there are convectional currents which are pressing against these plates in the upward direction, and these are responsible for movements of plates around the globe. So therefore this is a very fact-based conceptual question. You can easily solve it if you just refer to your NCERTs. It will become very easy for you. Now again, this question, Aravalli Range, Malwa Plateau, Northern Sarkar and Nilgiri Hills. This question is basically based on map. If you look at the map correctly, you will be able to derive the answer in a very precise manner. Bureau of Indian Standards, the National Health Standards Body of India, is under. The answer would be Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. See, BIS is a national standards body and was in the news. So keep a track on the news. The UPSC is definitely going to ask you. This is current affairs from June. UPSC is definitely going to ask you current affairs. They would ask you about statutory acts. They would ask you about national bodies. They will ask you about constitutional bodies. So you need to know which body comes under which ministry. Now the next question is about the dendritic, basically the drainage pattern. Again, straight away lifted from NCERT. Now this is a very interesting question. You're walking along the McMahon line from west to east. If you jump back to the Indian side, you will find yourself in Sikkim. The latitude passing from your location will cut through Nagaland and Rajasthan. At the end of your journey along the line, you may end up in Myanmar. So the correct answer is only 3. You will end up in Myanmar. Now you need to know what is McMahon line. McMahon line is the line which divides India and China. And therefore, if you walk along in the west to east direction, you need to know that McMahon line runs from tri-junction of India, Bhutan and China to the tri-junction of India, China and Myanmar. Okay, it is the eastern sector of the international border between India and China along the state of Arunachal Pradesh. So obviously, question number, the statement 1, if you jump back to the Indian side, you find yourself in Sikkim, is definitely wrong. Okay, and also statement number 2, because it talks about Nagaland and Rajasthan. Obviously, Rajasthan is something which is not even in the picture here. And latitudinally speaking, also Rajasthan does not fall in the same latitude as other states, as in which share their location with McMahon line. So this is a question which is basically it's also current affairs based, it's also geography based. It's very applicability in this question is very high. So this is a tough question, but the answer could be derived in a fair, straightforward manner. If you just apply your mind, if you keep your map in front of you, you should know from where the Tropic of Cancer in India passes, which you should know which states lie along the same latitude. So this again, I'm stressing the importance of map reading in geography. This question is about Digital India program. It talks about Digital India has 9 pillars, and obviously harmonization of laws to facilitate e-commerce is not one of the 9 pillars. This is a straightforward question. If you're following your news correctly, if you are sharing your current affairs with your friends, you can definitely answer this question. This is very easy, and just keep a look on the wording of the question, because it says which of these is not a pillar. You might goof up and you might say that all of them are correct, is because the first 3 are definitely pillars of the Digital India program. But if it's about which of these is not a pillar of Digital India program, then you need to know that option number 4 is not. Therefore, see, all the national schemes, flagship schemes, this could be Digital India, it could be Make in India, it could be Startup India, Stand Up India, Namami Gange, all these flagship programs of the government, you need to know the ministries that they are associated with. You need to know their pillars. You need to know what is happening at the ground level. Implementation कैसा हो रहा है? जैसे टेरिटोरियल आर्मीज लगाई जा रही है गंगा एक्शन प्लान में, गंगा क्लीन अप प्रोग्राम में. तो ये कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो यूनिक हैं, और ये यूनिक चीज़ें आपको पता होना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. ये यूनिक चीजें ही आपको they'll help you eliminate options. So of course this was a very easy question. We have also mentioned all the other 9 pillars in our explanation. Moving on, this is a question about volcanic origin, Andaman and Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Deccan Trap, Aravalli. See, Deccan Trap is definitely a volcanic in origin, therefore we know that it is correct. So option number B does not have it. So we can eliminate B very simply speaking. Now, if you look at it, Aravalli ranges, they are towards Delhi, move from Rajasthan towards Delhi. There is no volcanic activity in that area. The only notable land feature that is there is the desert, right? Therefore, Aravalli ranges is definitely not an answer for this. You can easily eliminate 4, and while doing so, you can eliminate option B and option D. What is left is option A and option C. Now, what is left is Lakshadweep. So, Lakshadweep is basically, it's mainly a coral formation. Whereas if you look at Andaman and Nicobar, they are the continuation of the volcanic stream. Okay, they are elevated tops of the submerged mountains, right? And these mountains had volcanic origins. So therefore, option number 1 and 3 are only correct. This again was based upon your elimination and your map reading abilities. We have also put in a question regarding the joint military exercises. Now, joint military exercises have suddenly become a part of current affairs, and in a very big way, because they are very important. Now, why are they important? Is because we are having a lot of bilateral relationships, we are forging newer ties with newer nations, and we are also experiencing a lot of turmoil on our eastern border and on our western border as regards China and Pakistan, respectively speaking. What happens here is, in this, India is trying to have a lot of military exercises with a lot of other nations to strengthen Indian Navy, Army and the Air Force likewise. And therefore, suddenly these exercises have assumed a lot of importance in India's polity and in India's geostrategy. These are basically memory-based questions, so keep an eye on them. Yeah, they will definitely pop up in the newspapers in the coming 1 year. And if you've been reading your newspapers thoroughly, you'll definitely be in a position to answer questions like these. This is a question about, if you look at question number 23, this is a question about Kharif crops. Now what is common in both north and south? Bajra, rice, maize and groundnut. So rice and maize are found everywhere. Also because of green revolution. Rice is a very water intensive crop. So it was restricted to the water rich regions of India, especially the Gangetic belt running towards West Bengal and also the coastal areas of South India. But what we've seen is that rice has gained prominence as a kharif crop in other areas also, owing to the availability of groundwater, because a lot of electricity subsidy is given to farmers and therefore a lot of water can be pumped out. Now because of that, rice has become a very popular crop amongst farmers. So you need to understand that rice is cultivated on a pan-India level now. Maize, of course, maize is definitely cultivated in both North and South India. It's given in our books. So it's a pretty straightforward question, lifted directly from your NCERT class 12, Land Resources and Agriculture. Anybody who has gone through their NCERTs would definitely be able to answer this question in a precise manner. A very easy question, I would say. So if you look at question number 26, which river basin is common for Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana and Maharashtra? The answer to that is definitely Krishna. Again, a map-based question. If you just look at the drainage system of India, you can see that Krishna actually flows from all these 4 states. Whereas if you look at Kaveri, it flows down south from Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Koyna is only in Maharashtra. Godavari rises in Maharashtra, but does not encapsulate the Karnataka region. So therefore, definitely again, this question can be answered using your NCERTs, class 12 Indian people and ignore. So guys, moving on, National Water Policy 2002. Now whatever the answer to this question is, I know it's a very difficult question to answer, but we have put this question with respect to the river linking that's happening. We've already talked about Ken-Betwa river link. Even in this year's UPSC, you had a question regarding river linking projects in India. So there's a great possibility that you would have National Water Policy in 2002. Also, there's a lot of talk going about watershed management, river basin management, and This year only UPSC has asked in its GS1 paper about watershed management in India. So with regards to that, I think this becomes very essential. National water policy could be one of the hot topics next year, and definitely it could be asked in the examination. You need to be thorough with your answers. See, again, this finds a mention also in your class 12th NCERT. It's not only restricted to your current affairs. So if you're doing your current affairs along with your NCERTs, I think you're in a great position to answer a question like this. The next question, question number 31, would be about coal mines, and the options are fairly simple. Again, class 12, land resources and agriculture. Coal is a depleting commodity in India, therefore it assumes a lot of significance. And 60% of power in India comes from thermal power plants, therefore we also have to import a lot of coal into India. Therefore coal as a commodity becomes very important. Likewise, other commodities like cement, sugar and steel, which are also important for driving an economy, are also very important. You could also study them in detail so that when the question pops up, you are in a position to answer that question. Moving on to another question, I would say let's take question number 36. It talks about cotton industries, and it also asks you not just about cotton industries but to locate these industries from south to north. Now the correct answer would be Sangli, Solapur, Devas and Ujjain. Just go through your NCERTs, you will get an answer to this. Cotton again is a very important commodity. So whenever you are talking about land resources and resource management, always make a list of important commodities and resources which are in the news, which are responsible for driving Indian economy. Don't just pick up random things, just pick up things which are very important. This also, I'm also trying to tell you that you have to be very smart in your preparation. We're moving towards smart cities, we're moving towards smartphones, we're moving towards smart climate, smart agriculture. I don't think our preparation is any exception to that. I think this is time now to move on towards smarter ways to execute your preparation plans. And how to do it is basically, especially in this regard, you should pick up commodities and resources which are important from the national perspective, from the development perspective as well. Moving on, there are many questions which have been asked from land resources. This is question number 40 is very interesting. Angkor Wat temple are located in Cambodia. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This, if you've been reading your newspapers, if you've been reading your NCERTs, it becomes one of the easiest questions ever, because Angkor Wat temples which are in Cambodia are actually in the news because of archaeological excavations that are going on there in Cambodia and Philippines both together. And Archaeological Survey of India is helping Cambodia in its excavation capacities and to develop its scientific capabilities in the same format. So it has been in the news for a very long time. Also, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It goes needless to say that it has been in the news and it belongs to the ancient history. It belongs to that era. It's actually a monument which is a gateway to our past civilization. So UNESCO has declared it as a World Heritage Monument, and that also has been in the news. So what is essential for you is here to go through your newspapers in a thorough manner. Make sure that you read everything properly and you sniff out, you separate the wheat from the chaff. You separate the information that is relevant from the information that is irrelevant from a given article. Such statements are going to appear in your examination. Always trust your instinct and always trust your memory. That could only be backed by your current affairs reading. So your current affairs reading becomes indispensable to your preparation for UPSC. Now again we asked a question about Good Country 2015 index. Indexes have been in news. They could ask you about any index. They could ask you about Global Competitiveness Index. They could ask you about Corruption Index. They could ask you about Human Development Index. So a lot of indexes are coming up. These indexes are actually devised in a form wherein you can judge the development rate of a country, wherein you can judge the human development indicators of the country, where you can judge the polity of the country and transparency that is existing in the polity of a given country. Most of these indexes are prepared by world institutions like IMF and World Bank, also in collaboration with a lot of institutions of global standards like Stanford, Cornell and Harvard. So you need to know wherein this study is coming from. Also you need to know the metrics on which this study is developed upon. Also you need to know the top rankers, and in addition to that you need to understand India's ranking in that. So these are 4 pillars of how you study these indexes and these reports also. Shangri-La dialogue obviously is very important. The answer is the correct answer would be the Shangri-La dialogue hosted annually by independent think tank International Institute of Strategic Studies. The dialogue is held on the sidelines of BRICS summit. That's not right. Why is that not right? Is because recently we had BRICS summit in Goa, and what we saw that there was a lot of summits that happened on the sidelines of that. There was no mention of Shangri-La summit. So when you know that there was no mention of Shangri-La summit, you can easily dispatch option number 2 as an incorrect option. So what is left is A, C, and D. In this, both 1 and 3 are correct. So the correct answer would be A, 1 and 3 only. The Shangri-La dialogue hosted annually by independent think tank International Institute for Strategic Studies, and the meeting is a chance for defense ministers, military chiefs, and high-level defense officials to hold bilateral meetings on its sidelines. This is something that is in the newspapers. You need to understand this. You need to read it thoroughly. But you could have easily, without reading through the newspapers, you could have easily eliminated at least option number 2. So your chances of success in this question would be of almost 66%, right? So likewise, as you can see, we have put in a lot of questions from the current affairs. You can see that there's a question on International National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, NIIF. NIIF has been in the news along with Real Estate Infrastructure Trust and INVITS, Infrastructure Investment Trust. Now these trusts are basically going to mobilize a lot of public funds for public and capital infrastructure development in the country. National Investment and Infrastructure Fund becomes the parent fund from which all the funds will be taken from, and it has been in the news. It has been a part of Indian economy for a very long time. You need to know everything about it. Like last year they asked you something about Stand Up India. Next year they might ask you about National Investment Infrastructure Trust. I'm pretty sure that they will be asking you about this fund or something related to this fund because it's in the news, and the Economic Advisor of India is the brainchild of the Economic Advisor of India. Therefore, it assumes a lot of significance in the current affairs that we are studying. Moving on, you have so many questions again. We've put so many questions again from current affairs. Current affairs has to be thorough. What we've done, guys, as we are deciding current affairs for every month, this actually is an exercise which will involve 15 days of current affairs from a given month, as has been mentioned in the timetable. Now, what happens is when you do current affairs from that perspective, you're getting a lot of inputs as regard what to study and what not to study. You might have skipped a lot of current affairs, but that's okay. You can just go through the papers and you can see what questions were asked, and you can go back to those topics, Wikipedia those topics, or Google those topics to get requisite information on the same. So our current affairs preparation should be oriented in a manner that because things that we are reading are relevant, things have a significance in India's polity, in India's culture, in India's strategic ties, and in India's internal and external security matters, as well as in India's constitutional polity. So once you have an orientation like this, you'll always be able to read news which is relevant, and you'll always skip news which is not irrelevant. So even this examination, this test is also going to help you a lot in terms of how to read your newspapers. Don't just treat it as a test for geography, treat it as a test wherein your current affairs is tested on a month-to-month basis. So this is systematic investigation of our current affairs which we are going to indulge in very thoroughly in the coming months, in the coming tests. Again, there is a question on green bonds. Green bonds are very essential for the development in the country. If I'm not wrong, there was a question on green bonds asked this year in UPSC. Who issues green? No, there was a question on masala bonds. In fact, I'm very sorry for that. So there was a question on masala bonds. So why wouldn't they ask a question on green bonds? Why are green bonds very important? Apart from the technical definition of the term green bonds, and apart from the details that go into it, what I want to tell you is that we are moving towards a cleaner world. We are striving every day to be a cleaner world. We are trying to take care of Mother Earth, Mother Nature. We are trying to address global warming and climate change. When you want to do that, you want to devise economic activities, or you want to devise such economic instruments which will also help us in addressing global climate change. When you talk about green bonds, you're talking about development of clean infrastructure, development of infrastructure which is not going to consume a lot of energy, which will involve a little less of fossil fuel burning. So green bonds are going to be invested only in those projects which are climate friendly, and therefore they gain a lot of significance as regards our current affairs are concerned. Again, we have a question on National Green Tribunal. Please go through it. We have a question on desert eagle 2 exercise. Now again, you have to see what exercise corresponds to which country. Once you know that, it's only a matter of your memory. So you have to refresh your memory as regards these military exercises, missile programs and defense programs and ISRO programs and extraplanetary exploration programs are concerned. It's only a matter of your memory. So do one thing, just take a stick note, jot down your important points and put it in your closet, put it in your cupboard, put it on your wall, put it wherever it is at your eye level. So whenever you are taking a break from studying, whenever you are moving around in the house, what happens is you can always skim through it, and once you skim through it on a daily basis, it will be embedded in your memory, it will be concretized in your memory. Once that happens, questions like these become a cakewalk, and trust me, these are the questions which will help you cross the cutoff and actually help you maximize your score. Moving on to other questions, we have also talked about the Hague Code of Conduct, also because of the South China issue, because of the judgment given by International Court of Justice, because of the sovereign dispute that is arising in that area. So these things become very important. So they might ask you something which is in the background. So what is in the background is the Hague Code of Conduct, from wherein you derive a lot of international norms and conventions, and from where the basis of International Court of Justice is drawn upon. So therefore UPSC might ask you something based on these lines. Like last year in 2015, they asked something about BirdLife International. Now that's one of the biggest organization as regards animal conservation and migratory bird conservation is concerned. But the question was asked is because, not because BirdLife International was in news, but essentially because a lot of birds are getting extinct, and therefore this organization assumes a lot of importance in the current scenario. Therefore you need to be thorough with your current affairs. UPSC last year asked a question on APEC, so we have continued with that trend and we have asked you something about APEC. So I hope you were better prepared to answer a question like this. Moving on, there are a lot of questions as regards rivers of India, Gangetic Plain, which rivers have their mouths in the Arabian Sea, major factors affecting the formation of soil. So these are the questions which have been lifted straight from your NCERTs. And UPSC is not going to ask you anything apart from your NCERTs. Even if they ask you something, it will be based on your complete application of the knowledge that you have. So you reading your NCERTs, again, I'm stressing that point, it becomes indispensable to your preparation. So be very thorough with that, be agitated about it, be edgy about it, be driven about it. Because when it comes to your NCERTs, you should have them at the tip of your tongue. And when you do that, what happens is you've almost taken care of 60% of your paper. So yes, there were some questions asked about soils also, because obviously we're moving towards climate smart agriculture, we're moving towards solarizing agriculture, we're talking about how to address declining soil fertility and soil deterioration in India. So soils are an important factor which play an important critical role, play a pivotal role in Indian agriculture, and therefore they might ask you about, like say suppose this question, with respect to laterite soils, which of the following contents are present in the soil? Nitrogen, iron oxide, potash, phosphates and calcium. The answer is iron oxide and potash. Soil is a difficult thing to remember. So make a table, you make a table in your house, you classify soils according to their content and according to the texture that they have as given in your NCERTs. Again, stick it in front of your table and go through it daily on a daily basis. Once you do that, it will be crystallized in your memory, and once that happens, you don't have to again go back to your NCERTs. Those tick notes are almost about enough. Badland topography के ऊपर question था. I think all of us could have easily answered that. It's the Chambal Basin. I don't think it requires any explanation also. It is given in your NCERTs directly. This is a question about endangered species found in the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. This question was asked in UPSC. Something similar was asked in UPSC, and because land-tailed macaque was in the news for a very long period of time, so obviously we have repeated this question to check. UPSC also has a tendency to repeat its questions. It has been observed since 2014, 15 and 16 that it will ask the same question as regards Buddha, as regards the official language of India. So why not this? So our objective here is to also keep going back to our previous year's papers and make sure that we refresh your memory regarding that.
so that you don't lose track of what has happened in the past, and also are better prepared if UPSC actually decides to again continue with this trend next year. Moving on, we have a lot of questions on forest policy of India. We have a lot of questions on the monsoons in India. Yes, this question is it's a nice question. It talks about Blossom Shark, Kalbaisaki Lu, and Bardoli Chira. These are local winds, and these actually are responsible for dominating the microclimatic regions of India. Therefore, you need to be again very thorough with your concepts. You need to be thorough with your India's physical environment. Go through that NCERT over and over again. Look for small details, because in those small details your answers are there. They're embedded over there. Read between the lines and try to frame questions in your mind. By giving you questions like this, what we've done is that we've tried to give you a very clear understanding of how questions are going to be formatted and framed. And therefore, when you read something new, you should be in a position to frame a question like that in your mind. We're talking about local winds here. There are a lot of local winds the world over, and in Goching Yuan you have a clear mention of all those winds. So you should know which is a cold wind, which is a hot wind, and therefore and the direction of the flow of the wind, of course. So that will help you answer questions like these. Moving on, we're moving on to the climatic region. So you need to know the climatic regions of the world, climatic regions of India, what is mountain forest system. That's again given in your NCERTs. You also need to know the kind of vegetation that is associated with that. You also should be very thorough with the kind of flora, fauna is associated with that. You also need to be very clear about what are endemic species, which species are getting endangered, and which species are under threat. So when you do a climatic region, don't just read about the climatic region and the monsoonal aspects or the climatic aspects that it has, but also talk about what kind of flora and fauna exists over there. Also see whether it has appeared in your newspaper or not. Just Google it and just Google the topic's name and Google Hindu. You'll probably get it in your search results. Forests any question on forest becomes a little a little confusing. Probably it's because a lot of forests share some similar traits and some similar species of trees. So don't get confused. Again, like I told you in the soil department also, just make a very clear classification and stick it in front of your table or in your bathroom or wherever you feel it is convenient. Is basically because if you go through it on a daily basis, you'll be in a better position to refresh your memory once you encounter questions like these. So from our end, what we've tried to do is we've tried to cover a lot of rivers, we've tried to cover a lot of landforms in India, we've tried to cover a lot of current affairs, we've tried to cover the drainage pattern, the forest system in India, the environmental aspects. So when you talk about India's physical geography, if you look at this question paper, it's almost about exhaustive. You can frame the same questions on the same topics in a likewise manner, and once you do that, your preparation is complete. So just going through this paper and just going through the explanations given in the paper or the resources that we have mentioned in this paper, what you can do is you can revise your entire India's physical geography within a span of 6 to 8 hours. Trust me guys, if you just revise your papers thoroughly, your half the battle is already won. You're very well prepared, you have enough ammunition for June 18. All you need to do is go through your current affairs over and over again, go through your NCERTs over and over again and see the kind of sources that we have mentioned. Just go through those sources and those page numbers, that much is enough. So with this I'd like to end my discussion on paper 1, that is test 1. I definitely see you for the discussion on test 2. Best of luck for test 2 guys. Solve it properly, keep your presence of mind intact, and I'll see you on the other side when we discuss online paper test 2 from A. Charles IS Institute. Thank you.